good morning. It's a pleasure, as always, to be given this opportunity by you to stand in front of you, to share a little that we can share together from the Word of God. I'm particularly excited that I was able to travel to the Philippines for 3 weeks, and I only arrived back on Friday afternoon. I'm still in the Philippine time, because Philippines is 6 hours ahead of us. So I'm still trying to recover back into my groove, but I'm hoping that in the next few days I'll be the usual me. So the brethren out there were sending their regards to you. They are also happy to have brethren very far away, where in Zimbabwe. And I'm sure I can assure you that you will well represented there. Our reading was taken from the book of Luke, chapter 10. And we are going to go back to that reading and take it again. The few verses that were read from verse 17 up to verse 20. Then we are going to see how much applications, or how many applications we are going to make from there. So this is Jesus, or the story about him and his disciples. Jesus, according to Luke chapter 10, verse 17, it tells us that the 72 returned with joy. They had been sent out to preach by Jesus. So they are going to come back to Jesus to report back. Naturally, they will have to come back and report. So they came back, the 72, they returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I saw Satan fall like a lightning from heaven. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. I mean, everyone would have come back very much excited like these men. Imagine these men have been out. All of a sudden, they have just been given this new power which they didn't have. They have gone out, they have been able to drive out demons, and demons will obey them. So they are going to come back excited, and they are going to report back to Christ and say, we are so happy because even demons were actually, obeying us. But Jesus is going to, of course, deflect them somehow or somewhat by telling them that that was not supposed to be, their need for excitement, because there was something more important which was supposed to excite them. And what was more important which was going to excite them was that their names were written in the book in heaven. I mean, even if it was you haven't been given such a rare achievement or rare opportunity to go and drive out demons, you would come back and you'll be excited exactly the same way they were excited. In fact, we will remember at this particular time, demons were really, roaming up and down every other time. If anything, making them submit to you was something that was not common. If anything, the opposite was actually true. We know that many people, of course, became slaves to demons, and many of them lived miserable lives once they were possessed with demons. I just want you to read with me a couple of verses while we are still there in the book of Luke. Let's turn to the 8th chapter, and we are going to find one classic case of a demon that had captured somebody, and of course somebody could not do anything because of demons. So, Luke chapter 8, if you go back with me to verse 26 in particular, that's where we are going to read. We are going to read a couple of verses after about verse 33, and we are going to see just one of the cases of demons that were terrorizing people at the time. Verse 26 says, then they sailed to the country of the Gerasenes. We know that this was soon after Jesus had calmed the storm. This all happened, of course, in the Sea of Galilee. Soon after, Jesus is going to sail further to another town. There were so many towns that were dotted around the Sea of Galilee. Capernaum was one of them. Chorazin was the other. Gerasenes was the other. Galilee itself. So they were dotted around this sea that was also known as the Lake of Tiberias. So Jesus is going to sail further with them and to this town which was called Gerasenes, which was opposite Galilee. When Jesus had stepped out, verse 27 tells us, on the land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. For a very long time, he had worn no clothes, and he had not lived in a house but among the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the unseen. Now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the men and entered the pigs, and the head rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. You can also get another version of the same story in Mark chapter 5. But what is of interest in this chapter is the fact that there is a man that was captured by the demons. It doesn't matter how many shackles or how many ropes he would use to tie him. He would actually tear everything and he would just go and live among tombs. By the way, a tomb is a grave. So he was living among the graves. And that was obviously not a nice sight to see. So those were the cases that were synonymous with demons at the time anyway. But for these men then to go, during the same time when demons are terrorizing people and they actually go themselves, and they are the ones that are going to terrorize demons, it was actually worth celebrating. This is why they came back to Jesus and said, "Oh, demons are actually, subjects to us as well." But Jesus, as we have already said, he said that was not anywhere near what was supposed to be the source of their excitement. Their excitement, the source was actually supposed to be that their names were written in the book of heaven. We are just like that today. If we were to ask ourselves a question today and say, what actually excites us nowadays? I think we can actually come up with several things. I have just 9 suggestions that I'm going to put up just now. But I know you actually can add to this the nine suggestions or list that I have. And you know what actually excites people today. What really excites us nowadays? Of course, getting a job is just one of those cause for excitement. If you have been looking for a job and finally you get a job, you are going to be excited because at least now this is your time to work and at least earn and of course make some little bit of income into your life. One of the things that of course also can excite us is of course getting promoted. You are already working, but you always look for a promotion. If you are going to be promoted at work, you are definitely going to be very much excited because promotion comes with several other packages. More money, more allowances, more responsibilities, and you are going to be very much excited by being promoted. Passing an exam is also one of the causes for excitement nowadays. If you pass your exam, you have been writing an exam and you pass the exam, definitely you are also going to be very much excited because it's an achievement that you have just made. So you are going to be excited. Buying a new property, doesn't matter how small or how big some property is, but it's a new acquisition that has come amongst whatever you own. You are going to be excited. When we were just growing up, you have just gotten your first job and you have just gotten this opportunity to at least buy a bed that you are going to sleep on, which calls your name. You are going to be very excited because you didn't have it all along. And now you have jobs, you are going to be excited. So buying a property is going to make everybody, being excited. Another thing that can get you excited is, of course, getting married. I've seen people getting wild because finally I've gotten married. And it's a cause for excitement because marriage is a blessing after all that comes from God. If you are married, you surely should be excited by that. A birthday, many people actually celebrate, go wild. Some even travel far afield to celebrate a birthday because they are excited by that. Giving birth, especially to your first child, definitely that is also a source of excitement. Recovering from a sickness, if you were sick and all of a sudden you have recovered, you are going to be excited. This morning we were in 2 Kings chapter 20. We were looking at a man, the king that was called Hezekiah, Hezekiah fell sick, and of course he was going to die. God actually told him, you are not going to recover, you will die. But we know that after he recovered, he prayed to God, and of course he recovered. God added 15 more years on his life. He obviously was excited by that, because you really need to be excited by getting well again. You are now back again to do whatever you can do. And one last thing that I just want to suggest now is winning a game. Whatever game you are playing, if you win it, if results are positive, you are actually going to be excited by that. All these things that I've mentioned, are good reasons for us, to celebrate or to be excited when we achieve them. They are good in our lives. They are good for us. So they cannot make us rejoice every time that we actually achieve them. They uplift us, of course, changing our status into another status. But after having achieved all these things, and you are actually excited, you go to Jesus and you say, Jesus, I'm excited because I just turned so many years. Interestingly, on Friday of the 31st was supposed to be my birthday, according to, if I was one of those that celebrate birthday. I would not have been able to celebrate it because 12 midnight Ethiopian time, Ethiopia is 1 hour ahead of us. I was at Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, of course waiting to connect to Singapore on that night. 10 past 12, I was leaving the airport at Addis Ababa on the 31st of January. So 10 past 12, Ethiopia, it would be 10 past 11 here. I was just about 15 minutes away from celebrating wildly, turning so many number of years. I wouldn't be able to celebrate it because 15 minutes later, I would have been over, I'm sure, over the Indian Ocean, flying all the way to Singapore. So I celebrated it in air. I have just turned this so many years, Jesus. I'm actually celebrating because of that. Then Jesus actually says to you, that's okay, but actually that's not really a reason for you to be excited. What should excite you is that your name is written, in heaven. But these are things that we consider very important in our lives. How can they not matter? Jesus is actually apportioning what is more important than what you are celebrating. These guys were human like you and me. They are coming back and they're celebrating, and Jesus says, hold on. That should not be the source of your celebration. Your celebration is much better than that. Your names are written, of course, in heaven. I was thinking about all the things that I mentioned about. And for sure, Jesus is actually saying these things are not important than heaven itself. That's exactly what he said. So what is he saying? It was the same case with the disciples on the day. They were excited because they had achieved something that they never achieved, something that eluded so many of their generation. They achieved it. Jesus said, that's not your source of excitement. Your source of excitement is that your names are written in heaven. We have just read that. We are not going back to read that, but that's what we read. I want you to take notice of verse 20. Verse 20, Jesus says, nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but you must rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Then another question is going to come and say, what are these names that are actually written in heaven? Because reading throughout the New Testament at least 10 times, we actually have an idea that is actually given to us, in different books about names that are actually written in heaven. Paul, for example, in Philippians chapter 4, verse 3, he actually says, yes, I ask you also, true companion, help these women who have labored side by side with me in the gospel together with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are written in the book of life. At least 6 more times in the book of Revelation, the idea of the names that are found in the book of life is expressed. We will certainly ask ourselves, of course, questions and say, maybe several other questions. One of them, of course, is what is this book that the Bible, the New Testament especially, talks about at least 8 times? How can they repeat for at least 8 times talking about the same thing? What exactly is this book that they are talking about? Does it look like our books which we write in every day? Because we know books. If you tell me about a book, immediately what comes into me is a paper, those books that we actually write in. One of them is just lying in front of me. One is lying in front of you. That's a book to me. But if the Bible is telling me, or if Paul was telling Christians at Philippi that your names are written in the book of life, what kind of a book that is? I would wonder, and I would want to know all that. Does God practically write names one by one in this book? Does he really use a pen? What kind of a pen? Is it an Eversharp? Is it some Parker of some sort? Is it an HB pencil? What exactly does God use? Those are some of the questions that we may ask ourselves. But another important question that we need to ask ourselves is whose names there? Because if Paul is writing to the Philippians and he says your names are written in the book of life, what should I do for my name to be written in this book? Who qualifies to have his name written in all this, in the book that is kept in heaven? And over time, of course, we know throughout our experience and history that books deteriorate. The ink that is written in your book fades. Where does God keep his book, which is not going to fade? What kind of ink does he use which will remain indelible for all these years? Because when Paul was writing this passage, he was writing this passage when Jesus said it in Luke chapter 10. We are talking of over 2,000 years that have gone by. But that message still sounds very much relevant today to you and me. Our names still being written. What kind of ink? Is the name of Paul that was written at the time, does it still appear? Because whatever was written 20 years ago, if that book is lying somewhere, and somebody does not take care of it, everything is going to be deleted in it. What kind of book is this that Jesus is talking about? So all these questions may come to us, they may come to you, they may come to me. But at the end of the day, none of us is going to be able to provide an exact answer to this question because we don't know. All of us don't know. But this is my answer then to all these questions. Because we will never know the good answers to these questions. Does that then mean we should not believe what Jesus said? Is that going to cause us not to believe? Because on natural science, if you are going to use natural science, there is in the book that is going to last for 2,000 years. Sure, somewhere along the line, something is going to happen to that book. If you really think about the manuscripts that were written very early during the time of Moses, many of them have been destroyed because of time, because of wear and tear. So what kind of book is this that the Bible is talking about? I have already said we cannot provide a concise answer to all that. And in fact, I don't need to know the answers. Neither do you need to know those answers. We don't need to know the finest of the details of how God handles the names of those He will give eternal life to. That's not really our business. So what is our business? If we can't answer this question, so what should we do? And this is our business. Our business is, of course, for you and for me to just try and fight for what is within our purview. Let's leave everything else that we can understand. And let's make the most of those things that we can understand. What is it that we can actually understand? I think the New Testament is very clear on what we are supposed to do, or at least we know what the early Christians did for their names then to be written in that book. And I'm sure if we are going to toe the line and follow what they did, our names are also going to be found somewhere written in that book. I remember one of the writers that I've already quoted here is the Apostle Paul. And the Apostle Paul, at least twice in the book of 1 Corinthians and at least once in the book of Philippians, particularly in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1, Paul says, you should imitate me as I imitate Christ. We know the life that Paul lived. We know the pitfalls that he had to overcome. We know everything that Paul, in fact, for all intents and purposes, from now on, Paul is going to be the writer of 50% of the New Testament. 13 books out of the 27 are known to have been written by Paul. If the book of Hebrews is also going to be given to him, then he wrote 14 books. We know Paul's past. We know what Paul achieved. We know Paul's journeys and his total journey in life. Then Paul, after having done everything, he then comes to you and says, you should imitate me. And the reason why you should imitate me is because I imitate Christ. So I know for sure that even though I don't know what ink God is going to use to write my name down in heaven, but if I imitate the example that I'm given by Paul, if I'm going to imitate the example that I'm given by Peter or by John and all the other apostles, I know that my name is going to be written in heaven. At least that is an assurance. So that should actually comfort me Even though I can't provide answers to all the questions that we gave above, I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about, at least, is that my name can be written. So what I should be doing now is to make sure that I follow Paul's example as I imitate him, because he imitated Christ, so that my name is going to remain written, in this book in heaven. The biggest, enemy of human beings, the biggest, since time immemorial, the biggest enemy that we have is to waste our time doing things that we think are important, which really are not important. And I think Jesus' answer here actually gives us a guide. I mean, Jesus has sent out some men to go and preach. They have gone out, they have preached. Some of the things they have achieved while they are preaching is that demons came out, and they ran away. They are coming back to report to their master and say, that's what we did. Jesus is saying you should not lose your focus. That's okay, it's part of the job. But that really should not consume your focus, because your focus is much, much better than that. So many times we are excited. I've watched some of you that watch soccer. We have seen from time immemorial that one team goes and scores a goal. But while they are excited because they've just scored a goal, they are still, so much absorbed by scoring a goal. They forget to put the guard. And then the other team is going to score within the next second against them. How does that happen? It happens because while you were being excited, you forgot that there are some things that are more important than just celebrating. This is a goal you have scored. It's not going to be taken away from you. So you should not celebrate and forget that you still have your goal to also guard, because that person is an enemy who is also going to come and attack. And this is exactly true with humankind from time immemorial. The problem that we do is we always are consumed doing things that really don't matter in life. Right there in the book of Luke chapter 10, there is another story again that we read about Martha and Mary. And of course, Jesus has come to Bethany, where Martha and Mary stayed. And while he was with them, Jesus is teaching. Mary came and she sat by the feet of Jesus, listening to Jesus teaching. Martha is busy doing cooking. She's running up and down, which is good, because visitors are in your home. You are supposed to cook for them. She was doing a very good job. Unfortunately, she just did it at the wrong time, because this was not time to cook. This was time to come and listen. In fact, we learned that because when she saw a young sister sitting, listening to Jesus, she came and she complained. And she said to Jesus, Lord, why are you letting me and not come to help me? And Jesus' answer again was exactly the same answer he is giving to these apostles, to these disciples. His answer was, what you are seeking is good, but at the wrong time. Paraphrasing what he said. But Martha has chosen that which will never be taken away from her. Because Martha has prioritized that which was important at the time, she is going to succeed. Mary succeeds while Martha is going to fail. Both of them were doing things that were right. And I'm coming back to my earlier point, that people waste too much time on things that really don't matter. And I think we actually need to be wise. There are so many things that we need in life. Many things. That if we were to follow each and every one of them to its logical end, not a single one of us would be here this morning. Because there is something that is calling you out there, which needs your attention. So what am I going to do? Am I going to divide myself? You can't divide yourself. So what am I going to do? What it means is one of those things that require your attention is going to suffer. But let that one which doesn't matter suffer. At least I have to do and follow that which is going to cause my name to be written in the book of heaven. Because that's what I need. I need my name to be there so that one day I'm also going to be found present. I remember when we were still in the police. It was very important when you would write occasionally, when you were due to write an examination to be promoted for the next rank. It was almost important because we have spent almost all the time, trying to revise, read this and that, all the statutes. They are playing, they can actually fill this role. So you need to read all those books and know them, because you don't know which book they are going to ask you from. So after having read all these books and the exam has come and we have written, you are going to be waiting and waiting for the results to come. Results are going to be marked at PGHQ in Harare. Then they are going to be sent to all respective stations at some point. So they are being promoted from one rank to another. They are going to send out a signal. We called it a radio at the time. It's a printed paper that has names of all those people that have passed, and they are supposed to then be promoted to the next rank. So while you are waiting for that, you really don't have you are so anxious because you are just saying, am I going to be part of that? Am I going to be part of that? So finally when the radio comes out, and you're actually going to go there and you see the radio, you're reading through the names, and you find your name is there. The first thing that you would actually do is perhaps to rush for a pen and make sure that you underline to make sure that I am there. Why? Because it was an achievement that you would have made. But I'm telling you that was just a promotion which would give you an earlier rank, a later rank as you go up the ladder, which really doesn't matter if you really come back again to what Jesus is going to answer his disciples with. He is going to tell them that whatever achievement you are going to do in flesh, it really doesn't matter. Yes, it may help you in life to go on, but that really doesn't matter. Because what matters is for you to find your name. It was so important when I found my name there that I've actually been promoted to the next rank. I'm saying that is just some rank from the police, which really doesn't matter. What about on the day that you go there, and perhaps you are waiting, I don't know what the arrangement is going to be like. But what we are told is, when Paul writes to the Thessalonians, he actually, gives them this expectation, and he says when Jesus is going to come, he is not going to be missed. Everybody is going to see him coming. When he comes, while everybody is looking, those that are, he doesn't even use the word there. He says those that are sleeping in him are going to be the first that are going to rise. So you are looking at this picture and you are imagining it, seeing all those that are dead in Christ rising, and those that are still living at the time, but they are still living in Christ. They are going to be joined together with these who are dead. And there they are. As a group, they are actually going to meet their Lord in the heavens or in the clouds or whatever. And then God is actually going to put them in another place. So he's going to be reading this book. Perhaps he's going to be calling out physically, one name by another, one name after another, one name after another. You are also waiting there, of course, curious, and your name is called. And you know that you have found yourself in this eternal life. That's going to be a glorious day when that is going to happen. In fact, this is exactly what we are supposed to be putting our focus on. Not all these other things that are not going to last. It doesn't matter what you may think about. It doesn't matter whether you get a job, perhaps the best job in the world. At the end of the day, the writer of the book of Ecclesiastes says that is vanity. Solomon would be the best person to write that book. He tried everything. He was perhaps recorded today. If he was living today, maybe he would be one of those that were richer than every other man. He would be the richest man in the world. He had everything. But when Paul is now looking from a vantage point as an old man, he is looking back into his life. He is looking at this that he did. He is looking at that. He is looking at that. He looks at all those. And Solomon's conclusion is all that is vanity. In fact, his conclusion is what matters in life is to know God and of course to fear him. Because the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So that's exactly what Jesus is saying here. When everything is said and done, I will be confident, of course, and you should also be confident to be singing the song. There is a song that we sing here. I don't think that's what kids chose, as the closing song. When the roll is called up yonder. If we pay attention to that song, the song is actually you and me who are claiming that when the roll is going to be called, that is the nominal roll. If it's going to be called, I'm going to be there. However, think about what we said this morning about Hezekiah. When Hezekiah has been told by Isaiah that you are going to die, Hezekiah is brave to go to God and say, God, you know my faithfulness. You know how I walk without any blemish in my life. And I loved you from deep down my heart. God, you know that. Think about what Joshua said in chapter 24. We quoted it again this morning. When Joshua is going to say, choose whoever you want to believe this morning. But as for me and for my house, I am going to believe and I'm going to serve this living God. Again, think about what Paul said. When he's talking to Timothy, he wrote to Timothy and he said, as an old man, he was now being poured out like wine. But what made him happy
was the fact that his name was there. What made him happy was that what was waiting for him was this accolade, which he was going to be given whenever he got to heaven. Imagine on the day when this song is going to be sung, when the roll is called up yonder, my name is also there. We need to make sure that we can only do that while we are living in this flesh. Because once this time is passed, we have no other time to have our names written there. That should be what is important for you and for me. This morning I thought maybe this could actually encourage us as we are trying to continue living as Christians. We are going to have so many pitfalls. We are going to have so many caves. We are going to have so many steep ends. We are going to have so many ascents and descents. But all that really doesn't matter if you think about the glorious life that we are going to be given when finally Christ comes back and is going to give you that. So that should be the cause, for your excitement and my excitement. Am I saying we should not be excited about everything else? We should. But we should be excited with a limit. Always knowing that whatever is exciting us is actually vanity. Because at the right time it's going to pass. But what is never going to pass is for your name to be deleted. Nobody can delete it from the book in heaven except God himself. And nobody can write it in there except him, God himself. Let's be confident, and of course let us be comforted by those words, that one of these days your name is going to be found there. Only if I continue to do that which I'm supposed to do. Thank you very much for your time and your listening this morning. Thank you.